The resolution, I'll just read it real briefly, as the guts of it are right on lines 24 through 27. The legislature of the state of Montana hereby applies to Congress under the provisions of Article 5 of the United States Constitution for calling a convention of states limited to proposing amendments to the Constitution that imposes fiscal restraints on the federal government, limits the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and imposes term limits on officials and members of Congress. So this obviously reflects Article 5 of the United States Constitution, where there are two processes to amend the United States Constitution. The first one is whenever 2/3 of both houses deem it necessary, they can propose amendments, or on the application of 2/3 of the several states, call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case, when ratified by 3/4 of the states, can be a valid part of the Constitution. So members there, I just want to point out here that what we're talking about, we are talking about a convention for proposing amendments. This is not a constitutional convention. And any suggestion to the contrary is misleading and certainly not consistent with the language of the United States Constitution. So I'd ask you to disregard anybody that starts talking about a constitutional convention because they're talking about something that I'm not talking about. This, even in Article 5, you're limited to what you could propose because it says, you know, it puts off limits, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 4, and Clause 1. Couldn't mess with slavery before 1808 or the direct tax before 1808, and you can't touch the sovereignty of the United States Senate. So the founders, just a little history here, the founders, toward the end of the 1787 Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, were talking about amendments to the Constitution. And Colonel Mason, George Mason, a delegate from Virginia, suggested that we have something lacking here, that there could, up until that point, the only amendment process was for the federal government, for Congress to propose amendments. Colonel Mason said that's not a good idea. There could be a time when Congress would be off the rails. He didn't use those words, but I'm just paraphrasing. And we would need the states to step in and control the power and the overreach of the federal government. So therefore, they used Article 5, the convention process for states to propose amendments, as a balanced and paired power to the power that Congress had to propose amendments. And as you know, as I articulated yesterday, there's these three reasons that I want to share briefly. Number one, the federal government has close to 30 trillion in debt. They're getting deeper in debt every day. We cannot do that forever without dire consequences. We clearly know in the state of Montana, the federal government has gone way beyond their power. They're involved in our wildlife, our air, our water, just recently, the president shut down the Keystone Pipeline, which is definitely a takings. How can you invest billions of dollars in something and then just have it taken out of your hands like that? And finally, there's a time when congressmen should be elected, and there's a time when they should quit, and oftentimes they don't know when to quit. So this resolution also calls for proposing amendments around term limits. That, Mr. Chairman, I'll sit down, answer any questions, and close.
Are there amendments?
I'm here live in Philadelphia at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. When you hear the phrase lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, these are the folks we should think of, those who anonymously gave their lives. Well, today you have a chance to volunteer. You need to volunteer for conventionofstates.com, the movement that's going to save the country. These folks are willing to step up and give everything. We need you to give just a little bit. Go to conventionofstates.com and volunteer today.